There is a number so large, so absurd, so divorced from economic reality that when it was spoken out loud in the Roosevelt Room of the White House yesterday afternoon, three senior advisors reportedly looked at each other and said nothing. Not because they agreed, because they were afraid. The number is $4.1 trillion. dollars. That is the amount of money Donald Trump just demanded from the nations of NATO. Not over a decade, not as a long term restructuring goal, not as an aspirational target in a policy white paper that gets filed in a drawer and forgotten. As a bill, a literal bill, payable to the United States Treasury for, quote, 7 decades of security services rendered to nations that refuse to defend themselves. He stood at a podium. He held up a gold embossed folder. He said the words that are now echoing through every chancellery, every defense ministry, every foreign affairs office on the European continent. He said, NATO owes America and the bill is due $4.1 trillion. dollars. Pay it or defend yourselves. Your choice. He gave the most important military alliance in human history, the alliance that won the Cold War, that stabilized Europe, that deterred Russian aggression for 75 years. He gave that alliance an ultimatum: pay or leave. And then he waited. He waited for the panic. He waited for the phone calls. He waited for the European leaders to fly to Washington, one by one, checkbooks in hand, begging for terms. He is still waiting. Because Europe didn't panic, Europe didn't call, Europe didn't fly to Washington. Europe called Ottawa. At 6:30 a.m. Brussels time this morning, in an emergency session of the European Council, every head of state in the EU sat in the same room and made a decision that just ended the Atlantic Alliance as we know it. They didn't vote to pay the bill, they voted to build their own military. It's called the European Sovereign Defense Initiative. It is the largest single military investment in history, $2.7 trillion over 15 years. A fully integrated European defense force with its own command structure, its own intelligence apparatus, and its own arms procurement framework that, and I need you to hear this word, explicitly excludes American defense contractors. Lockheed Martin, Boeing, Raytheon, Northrop Grumman, all of them locked out, blocked, and banned from bidding on $2.7 trillion in contracts. Trump demanded tribute, Europe responded with architecture, and the man who quarterbacked it all is a quiet Canadian with glasses and a spreadsheet who saw this coming 18 months ago, Mark Carney. In the next 45 minutes, I'm going to take you inside the room where this decision was made. I'm going to show you the leaked Pentagon assessment that warned this would happen. I'm going to show you why the stock price of every American defense contractor is in free fall this morning. And I'm going to explain why this isn't Europe being ungrateful. This is Europe being European. You are watching the end of the Atlantic Alliance. Not the treaty. The treaty is just paper. What's dying is the purpose. Don't look away. Let's go back 6 days. Because the $4.1 trillion demand didn't emerge from a policy review. It didn't come from the Pentagon. It came from a dinner at Mar-a-Lago on a Tuesday night with three men whose combined diplomatic experience could fit on the back of a cocktail napkin. Trump hosted a private dinner with two of his largest donors and a media personality. Over dry-aged steak and an extraordinary amount of Diet Coke, the conversation turned to NATO. One donor reportedly said, "Mr. President, if I ran a security company and a client didn't pay for 70 years, I'd send a bill." Trump loved it. He asked his trade team the next morning to calculate the bill. The methodology, which has been leaked to the Financial Times, is breathtaking in its intellectual bankruptcy. They took the total U.S. military budget since 1949, approximately $22 trillion, calculated Europe's share at 18.5%, and then applied a reliability discount of 15%. Because, and this is a direct quote, European nations have consistently underperformed. They put a reliability discount on the blood of Allied soldiers who came home in caskets draped in European flags because America asked them to fight. The number is economically meaningless, but it's a very good number for a rally. Trump sent the invoice to NATO headquarters on Thursday with a cover letter stating the president expects a formal response within 30 days. The response came in 72 hours. It wasn't a check. Let me take you inside the room in Brussels. What happened this morning wasn't a reaction. It was a detonation. a surgically precise detonation of 75 years of strategic dependence. The session was chaired by the European Council president, with Ursula von der Leyen seated beside him. She had prepared a 47-page proposal, the Sovereign Defense Initiative. She had been working on it for 14 months, secretly, waiting for the moment Trump gave her the excuse. Emmanuel Macron stood and said, "For 75 years, we outsourced our defense because we trusted the leader of the free world would never treat the alliance as a protection racket. That trust is gone. This bill is an eviction notice, and I will not be evicted from my own continent." Then Olaf Scholz, the German chancellor, stood. He said, "Germany has paid for the American alliance in ways that don't appear on an invoice. We paid with our sovereignty. We are no longer allies, we are debtors. And Germany does not accept invoices from nations that have forgotten the meaning of the word partner." 27 nations voted yes, not a single holdout. Even the Baltic states, Estonia, Latvia, Lithuania, who share a border with Russia and rely most on American protection, voted yes. Why? Because they concluded that the risk of depending on Donald Trump is now greater than the risk of depending on themselves. That is the most devastating verdict on American leadership ever delivered. Now, let's look at the evidence. First, the Pentagon warning. 6 months ago, the Office of the Secretary of Defense completed a classified assessment titled NATO Cohesion Under Financial Stress. It explicitly warned that any demand exceeding $500 billion would trigger a consolidation response rather than compliance. It warned that Europe would interpret a financial ultimatum as a termination of the alliance. Trump was briefed. He reportedly said, "They'll pay, they're scared of Russia, where else are they going to go?" This morning, they answered him. Second, the $2.7 trillion blueprint. This initiative isn't a press release. It has 5 pillars. 1, the rapid reaction force. 300,000 troops deployable in 10 days, independent of NATO. 2, the manufacturing corridor, a continent-wide arms network. Every bullet, tank, and jet built in Europe, by Europeans for Europeans. No American components, no American vetoes. 3, intelligence sovereignty, an independent satellite and signals network. No NSA integration, no Five Eyes dependency. 4, the nuclear framework. A coordinated European deterrent using French and British warheads, removing the American codes from the equation. And 5, the mineral compact. This is where Mark Carney's fingerprints are. He brokered a deal with Canada, Australia, and India to supply the rare earths and titanium needed for this army, locking the U.S. out of the supply chain. Finally, the market verdict. Money screamed this morning. European defense stocks exploded. Rheinmetall up 16%, BAE Systems up 12%. Meanwhile, the American defense sector shed $189 billion in market value in a single session. You don't invoice your customers and expect them to keep buying from you. That's not business. That's economic suicide. Why did Trump do this? He operates on a model of transactional narcissism. He looks at NATO and doesn't see an alliance. He sees a security company where he is the owner, and Europe is a deadbeat tenant. In Trump's psychology, respect is measured only in dollars. But his psychology cannot accommodate the concept that some things are too expensive to demand. By sending an invoice, he transformed allies into customers. And customers shop around. Europe's psychology, meanwhile, has been frozen since 1945. They accepted American insults because the alternative, defending themselves, was too scary. Trump didn't just insult them, he liberated them. He gave them the political villain they needed to finally stand on their own feet. Carney saw this coming. He knew Trump's psychology would eventually produce a demand so extreme, it would break the bond. He didn't cause the earthquake. He just built on the rubble. This isn't just about Europe. This lands on your paycheck. The American defense industry employs 2.1 million people. These are machinists in Connecticut, welders in Texas, and software developers in Virginia. When Europe stops buying American, those jobs are at risk. Trump wanted $4.1 trillion to make America great. Instead, he just handed the largest defense industrial boom in history to Europe, funded by American arrogance. The Atlantic Ocean used to feel like a bridge. Today, it feels like a moat. And the man who severed the bond is about to find out that 4.1 trillion is the most expensive number ever spoken, not because someone will pay it, but because of everything we lost the moment he said it. Don't look away. The world is changing.